After the successful launch of the Ioniq 6 and the 5N, it's time for the Ioniq 6N to come out of the shadows. But I have three important questions. One, is it fun? There's no point doing a sports version of anything unless it makes you smile. Two, is it worth the extra cost? Because it ain't going to be cheap. And three, is it still working as a practical everyday car? Let's take a closer look and find out. 1.94 m or 76 inches. That's the width of the new Ioniq 6N. That's 6 centimeters or about 2 inches wider than the standard 6. So what have they done with all that extra real estate? Well, in the first part, it has to be a little bit wider to accommodate the specially designed wheels, but more on that later. For now, you can see what they've done with the visual styling. Very different physical presence. The first thing that really smacks you across the face with this car is it was obviously important to Hyundai to make a very bold visual statement that this was not the same beast at all. So you have a very strong black physical presence at the base of the car. The lights end up here in order to make maximum impact of the visual styling lower down, and you can see that nowhere clearer than the new N logo right on the front. 4.94 m or 194 inches in length. That's about 10 centimeters or 4 inches longer than the standard 6. So a lot of body kit work going on this car. The dimensions are more or less the same in terms of the architecture of the vehicle itself. So most of that's made up with the padding and visual styling, but there are significant differences. These wheels are a great place to start from. These have been specifically designed by Pirelli for this car. As you can see, we also have redesigned wheels and redesigned brakes as well. These are 20 inches, and as you would expect, that's what the car comes with. So in order to accommodate the specially designed wheel, the wheel arch has been enlarged slightly, and that explains some of the additional width too. As you can see, there is a lot of black happening on the car. That contrasts beautifully with the color, and again, as with the front, the whole intention is to make the visual presentation of the car clearly distinct from the standard 6, and I think it works very well indeed. The car looks aggressive, it has a really nice sporty stance. So you'll be familiar with the standard swoop on the 6 coming through to the back. I think that works even better in the end than it does on the standard 6. The height of this vehicle is 1.5 meters. That's exactly the same as the standard 6, so no change there. But the styling, well, this is a very different beast. In the standard 6, you can choose between digital or standard wing mirrors. At the moment at launch, the N is only available with the standard. I think that's the right choice to have gone for. What do you think? Down in the bottom, you can see a red design line, which very nicely ties in with the red of the brake caliper that you can see through the wheel. There's also a discrete black on black N logo inset right into the bottom of this car, right behind the passenger door. As you come up and you can see the visual styling continued throughout the back, we can see this aerofoil on the rear. Well, what I can tell you is that the aerodynamic drag coefficient of this car is 0.27, and on a standard 6, 0.21. And let's be honest, it does look fairly cool. There are a couple of really nice visual throwbacks on this car to sports cars from a slightly earlier time. The first of those I want to draw your attention to is the way that the rear of the car is delivered. Is it just me, or is there something slightly evocative about earlier Porsches on that? Could be a bit of a crowd splitter, but I also want to show you this really nice feature. When you unlock the car and see this, if that isn't intended to evoke a graphic equalizer, I don't know what is. Interestingly, the rear styling is one of the places where the N makes its mark most significantly. They had to make a couple of bold choices here. As you can see, huge swathes of the rear are taken up now with black, but in the standard 6, one of its key signature features was the light strip that went right across the back. Well, in keeping with the styling entirely in black, they couldn't do that on this model, so instead, you have this very minimized dynamic lighting here that shows up when the car's switched on and switched off. Just above here, the indicators are dynamic, so they do still give you a little bit of that visual effect that you're used to from the standard 6. Flush handles on the door. You can either push to open like that. Oh, that feels nice. Let's do that again, Michelle. I was a little worried about the handle as to how well executed it was going to be. That actually feels really good. As you open up the door, you can get your first hint of the changing of design. Now, it's always a bit of an issue with sports models as to how much they're going to spend changing the interior, because obviously most of the money goes on the engineering developments. So the standard fit out is exactly the same, but there are some nice details. Michelle might be able to pick up a little bit on the color styling there. Mostly fairly hard plastic, but actually nice to touch. It's well delivered. As you may remember from the 6, it has a very shallow door pocket, but there is a little indent here which will take a bottle of water, so you still can fit your things in it. And a nice ledge that runs right throughout to rest your hand on and make it nice and comfortable and easy to get in and out of the car. As we look slightly deeper into the vehicle, I just want to show Michelle this detail down here. That's a nice touch, isn't it? The checkered design right on the door sill. Just reminding you that this is a sports edition. What I'm able to gather from Hyundai at the moment is they have a commitment to using sustainable, non-animal based materials, but they cannot 100% confirm that to me for this car because this is a prototype. And I'm happy to see we still have a nice little bit of sports detail here. So the seat looks very sporty, but is it practical and comfortable to sit in? Actually, a lot more comfortable than I was expecting. I have to be honest, usually when you see a sports seat that looks stylish, they're not that great. But this one is very nice. It's got good bolster support on both sides, so you really feel nicely held. And it really actually is very comfortable. Steering wheel falls right into your hands. And dare I say, I actually feel a little bit excited. I wasn't expecting to have this emotional response to sitting in this car. It is quite hard to get emotional about some of the newer stuff, but this feels good. It makes you want to drive. You might be familiar with the standard Ioniq 6 that there's a welcome mode where the car actually moves the chair to invite you in. Well, they haven't wasted any time and effort on that in this model. Why should they? It's for sports. So manual adjustment. Honestly, on a car like this, I prefer it. Well, any car design is going to be based on a little bit of compromise. As you may know from the standard Ioniq 6, you get the choice between regular wing mirrors or digital ones. And a throwback to the fact that digital are an option you can see on this car because we have a little hard plastic where that mounting unit would sit, but isn't available in this car. There is a fair amount of plastic in this thing, but it doesn't really affect your experience of the vehicle. If you look at the top, you can see two 12-inch screens running down into a nice ledge for palm support to access the screen. That's not the most comfortable thing in the world to use. Nice physical buttons here, and then a range of haptics underneath. But as you come down, you can see even more physical buttons. I feel that a lot of attention has been paid in this car to making sure as much as can be is kept physical and direct. That really helps reinforce the driving experience. As you look across here, we can see two USB-C driving ports, an inductive charging pad, a couple of cup holders, and a reasonably sized storage bin with plenty of space in it. Look at this. This is the key. This is an interesting design choice to me because if you remember from the standard 6, that was silver and did look, as Thomas pointed out, a little bit like a gadget that could have been designed for something else. Happy to see the return to black and nice to see the N logo embossed on the rear. Feels a little bit plasticky. I would have liked a bit more weight to it, but the overall design effect is a nice one. And you can see there's even a nice little central bit for it to sit in here. So overall, the interior feels sparse, a little hard, maybe even a little clinical, but in a sports car, that's what I'd want. As you can see here with the screens, driver's information, as you'd expect, is on the left and the infotainment is on the right. And as you can see, it's not the smoothest in the world. Now, with a lot of modern cars, you get difficult choices. This is the onboard system. And if you want to use things like battery preconditioning, then you need to use the inbuilt Hyundai mapping. But it's just not brilliant, is it? However, the advantage is it does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto baked in, so you can choose to do differently, although of course you won't get battery preconditioning if you do that. But I would still prefer to have that as a choice for the simple reason I don't really like being told what I have to do. The obvious competitor to this car would be, say, the Tesla Model 3, and in that car, well, you don't get the choice of Android or Apple, only Tesla. So I'd rather have the option, albeit that I just wish it worked a little bit more smoothly. Physical buttons, hooray! As you can see, we've got a good range of them across here, but if you want to mess with heating and cooling, always my car complaint, why, oh why, oh why would you have this done with these buttons here? It's fine when you're not actually moving or going anywhere, but when you're using this car at its maximum potential, do you really want to be feeling around here trying to guess where everything is? Not for me. That way is what leads you to sitting in a car that's baking hot because you're having too much fun driving it. Lower down, thankfully, more manual buttons, so you can see seat, heating and cooling, steering wheel, parking cameras, and then obviously everything else you'd expect for the windows. Nice to keep all of those controls clustered together. It does keep the door designs particularly free of clutter and looking nice. Up top we have the sunroof, and here I'm really interested to know what you think. A lot of the styling of sports cars echoes back to the 80s. The mechanism for the sunroof itself feels a little plastic and clunky, and when you open it, I don't know, to me, that's a bit reminiscent of a CD tray from a 1980s hi-fi. Am I being really unfair? As something I want to use a lot, I just kind of want a slick, painless execution. That just almost feels like a bit too much effort. What do you think? Let's look at some of the details for the steering wheel. This button here does the driving modes. Below that we have the assistance systems. Then underneath that we have the customization button, which allows you to change all the various sports features. And over here we have the E-shift. That's going to work in conjunction with what we have back here, which are the electronic shift paddles. Obviously no gears, but they do give you the experience of changing. And if you've tried the 5N, you'll know that that is delivered remarkably well. Well, it should be delivered remarkably well because we've got a lot of performance in this car. We have a 0 to 100 km per hour or 0 to 60 speed of just 3.3 seconds. And it tops out at 260 kilometers per hour or 160 miles per hour. Talking of all that performance, this button over here is the N-Grin button. Yeah, I know it's not the best name in the world, but what it does when you push it is it delivers the maximum amount of power to you immediately. So if you want to get that extra sports boost, give this a push and off you go. This car was developed on the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife to make sure it delivered maximum driving experience. And in order to make sure you'd enjoy that, as much customization as you could possibly want is available to you. There's obviously launch control, and there's even torque distribution where you can change how the setup works from front to rear motors. If all of that digital information seems like a bit much to you while you're trying to have fun with the car, there's also a head-up display to give you the most basic information you need while you're cornering and smiling, smiling, smiling. Glove box exactly the same as on the standard 6. It pulls out rather more like a tray than the standard levered design you'd expect. Delivered fine. It's plastic. Who cares? You're not in this car to look at drawers. In keeping with that 1980s throwback theme, look what happens when you turn the car off. Well, I'm not sure I'm 100% convinced by that. What do you think? In the rear of any sports car, it's always a bit tempting to say, come on, who cares? But it's a central design feature of Hyundai that the car has to work as an everyday car. So does it? Well, you know what? I'm actually pleasantly surprised back here. They haven't forgotten the rear, and it does feel fairly comfortable to sit in. You don't get the bolstered grip. Just once it would be nice if a manufacturer decided that they would give up on this pretense of having a third person with a strange body sitting in the middle and instead give you a bit of a sports experience back here. There's some attempt made, but what do you expect? It's the back of the car. You do get, however, 2 USB-C charge points, which are nice. As you can see from my legs, there is acres of room back here for the longer or taller passenger. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters, but I do have very short legs. So as you look here, you can see that there's masses of room. You also get an armrest, but come on, Anyone sitting in the rear of this car should just be desperate to be sitting in the front. Yes, you can do supermarket trips with it. It still delivers if you want to put kids in the back, and there's ample space for child seats. But that's not why you're buying it though, is it really? Speaking of practicality, let's take a look in the rear and see whether or not it works. Well, the standard 6 has 400 litres of load space in the back. This one has a little bit less. As you can see, it's had cross struts added for torsional stiffness in the chassis. So they're not quite sure yet what that's going to do to interior room, but as you can see, they're nicely executed, so it's really not going to make a huge amount of difference. You still get a decent load space, and the only way that's going to impact you is if you actually want to fold the seats flat and load something right through the rear of this car. In the bed, you can see that you've got a nice storage space both for tools and for charging stuff up here. And that's it in terms of floor storage. I have to say, this panel could be a slightly nicer bit of finishing. It doesn't feel quite as high quality as the rest of the car. I would have liked it if they'd done something that resonated a little bit more, but it's all about keeping the weight down to maximize the performance. So maybe I'm being a little unfair there. Plenty of room here for almost anything you could want to pop in. This is how you fold the seats. You pull onto these things, which releases the catch mechanism, and then you're able to fold the seat right down. So from there, if we do both sides, you can see that these struts obviously do have a significant impact in what you can fit through. However, I can tell you that the standard length of the boot with the seats up is 1 meter and 9 or 43 inches. But if you fold them down, you can get all the way up to 1 meter 95 or 76 inches. So you really can fit a lot in here, as long as you can work around these. But how often do you realistically need to do that? This is a very generous length of boot, and there's plenty of height available to you as well. So you should be able to fit mostly everything you need to in this car without ever needing to worry about these. Since this is becoming a little bit more of a trend thing, you can just about make out there. That is absolutely in keeping with the light signature of the rear of the car, those square dots, and provides a nice place for you to push on that. Electrically delivered charging port. You can see here DC charging, and they've done a nice job with the charging architecture here. It should charge at 350 kilowatts at peak. That's going to deliver 10 to 80% of charge in just 18 minutes. Not bad at all. When you're all done, pop the cover back on, push the button, and there you go. Well, of course, this car is twin motor, which means you're not going to get the 45-litre frunk that you get on the standard edition, but you are going to get an additional motor. So this is at the front. What you're looking at is a 166 kilowatt motor that produces 350 Newton meters of torque. The rear is a 282 kilowatt motor with 390 Newton meters of torque. That gives you a total combined output of 448 kilowatts or 740 Newton meters of torque. You can boost that up to 478 kilowatts or 770 Newton meters of torque. And if you want that in old money, that's 640 horsepower. If that's not enough to keep you entertained, I don't know what is. The battery on the 6N is the 84 kilowatt hour version, which is exactly the same as the 5N. Standardly, if you bought the 6, you'd be getting 77 or 53, I believe, as option. Because this car is a prototype, the external speakers haven't been fitted, but the internal ones have. So we can show you, most importantly, what it will sound like with that attenuation. So attenuation, actually, it's a complete replacement. We have an expert from Hyundai, and he's going to give us a little sample. Well, it doesn't do everything in a car that's sitting in a studio, but I can imagine that that would be quite exciting if you're barreling down a country road. So, answers to questions. 1, is it fun? Well, it looks and feels fun. I'm actually really excited to give this a try, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. 2, is it worth the extra money? Well, that's going to be very difficult to say until they actually come out with accurate pricing. It launches at Goodwood. We got to take a sneak peek first. I think they might trail their pricing a little bit after. But you know, if you want sports, you have to pay a little bit extra. And that's the last question. Is it workable as an everyday family car? Yes, it absolutely is. Look at the rear. You could fit a football team in there. The boot's still plenty usable. Don't worry about the torsion struts. You can still fit everything you need into it. It's great. If you want a comparison for practicality, check out our review of the 5N if you want the sports, or the standard Ioniq 6 if you want to see if it's worth spending more, and also take a look for comparison at the Mercedes CLA.